Hi guys, I guess it's recording. I want to talk to you today about some books that I like in Spanish. And the first one is La Tía Julia y el Escribidor by Mario Vargas Llosa. He's a Peruvian writer and he's really famous. And I really like this book. It's Aunt Julia and the Scriptwriter. There's definitely an English translation if that's what you need at this time, but definitely, obviously, it's originally in Spanish. It is such a funny story. It's one of the books that you're sitting there and you're actually like laughing out loud as you read it. Um, Basically, it's a story of this maybe like 18-year-old young man who falls in love with his aunt, but it's not his aunt by marriage. I mean, it's not his blood aunt, it's his blood aunt by marriage, so they're not related. And maybe it doesn't sound like that interesting, but it's so funny. And there's a lot of like stories within the stories. It's such a good movie or good book that they made a movie about it that you may not know about. It's called Tune In Tomorrow. It's with a very young Keanu Reeves, the youngest I've ever seen, like probably his first movie. He looks really good in it. He's like super young. And it's called Tune In Tomorrow, and it's so funny. It's kind of like a weird humor, but like I think it's funny. The movie's funny and the book's funny. Um, the guy he works with at the radio station is like such a character, and the guy who the actor who plays Columbo, or I believe it's Columbo, is the really funny character. Definitely have to watch it. Even if you don't have time for the book, watch the movie Tune In Tomorrow. It is so funny. A lot of like movies in English are a lot of times based on Spanish literature, and I think a lot of times people don't know that, and I don't think they explicitly convey that, but I think they really should because I think it's really interesting. Another book I really like is Antigua Vida Mia. It's by Marcela Serrano. So basically, it's translated in English as Antigua and My Life Before. It's kind of like a very clever play on words. Antigua is actually a city in Guatemala. And so Antigua Vida Mia also means like my old life. And then also Antigua, the city, my life. It's such a clever book. It's such a good book. It's the story of two ladies who are best friends, and it kind of shows their life and how it plays out. And it talks about Chile and like the history of Chile. And a lot of these books I read like a long time ago, but I still remember how much I liked them and the impression they left on me. I maybe could have done this like a while back when it was more fresh, but these are the books that so many years later I still love and I want to read again. Basically, it's a story of two women, they're friends, and it shows their relationship, and it's a book of hope, and it's like a masterpiece. I don't know if you've read A Prayer for Own Meaning in English, but it's so clever, and the way everything ties in together makes it a very satisfying read, and I would say this is similar in that sense. The book in English was A Prayer for Owen Meany, which is also really good. The two books I just mentioned I read in my master's program for Spanish. I think Aunt Julia and the Scriptwriter, I think that was one of the first books I read. Either that or The Death of Artemio Cruz, which is about like the Mexican, it's about Mexico, the history of Mexico. Another book, this is what I read in undergrad. This is probably one of the reasons I continued studying Spanish. My professor was amazing. She kind of reminded me of my mom, and she was very sweet and she was very encouraging. Because, well, it's kind of a long story, the whole Spanish thing. One day I'll make a video about why I chose to continue to speak Spanish and teach Spanish and do all of that. It's kind of an interesting story. So this one's called Felices Días Tío Sergio. It's by Magali Garcia Ramis, and it's Happy Days Uncle Sergio, and it's basically a letter of a young girl to her uncle who came into her life at some point, and they live in Puerto Rico. He came into her life and he just left such an impression on her, and there's parts in the book about like the tenderness he shared with her. And there's a scene or like a part in the book where the whole family is going to this really wonderful vacation spot, but I guess she can't go because like she didn't do her homework. She didn't do something she was supposed to do. I don't know if it was her homework. It's but she couldn't go, and it was really sad. And he was like, "I'll take you one day, and we're gonna have so much fun." And basically, she talked about like the tenderness, you know, he shared with her. And I don't have that quote about the tenderness, but it was really perfect. And maybe I'll dig it up. But I do remember, just from my memory, she's writing this letter to him. It says, "Uno se cansa de todo cuando no tiene fe, y yo lo sé que tú no tienes casi ninguna. One tires of everything when one doesn't have faith, and I know that you barely have any." And I think it's such a powerful quote because I think sometimes when we do become overwhelmed by everything and tired by life, it is because it is due to a lack of faith or belief. I mean, for me, thinking about that and thinking about sometimes in life when I feel very worn down, I think that it becomes very relevant. But regardless, I know some people don't like to hear about that stuff and they don't like to think about it for whatever reason. I think it's still a really valuable read. It's very tender. It touches the heart. And I really, really enjoyed it. It's just so many different things. She talks about how she was really lonely at this point in her, at a time in her life, and her and her brothers and sister, like her brother and her like cousins, they had something called Los Apaches de la Noche. Basically, the little it's like a little like club they had, a little friend, the things you do when you're young. You have the little games. And she was talking about how she didn't have them, and she didn't have, all these other things, and how all she had were her like books. It sounds like my life. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, it's just like so tender. It just touches to the heart, and it's so wonderful. I just hope you will read it. This is a book I haven't read, but I want to read, and it was going to be something we read in our master's program, but somehow we didn't get to it. I'm not sure. It's called Kamchatka, and I guess Kamchatka was a place that, people will tell their kids, we're going to send you to Kamchatka if you misbehave or whatnot, like a faraway place. It's a story about a boy who loses his father, and that's what like the beginning of the story is about. And there's a quote on the back of the book, and it talks about how we try to protect ourselves. We like put barriers between ourselves and other people to protect ourselves, but then we find ourselves, it says, basically we find ourselves enclosed by all these things we use to protect ourselves, and we find ourselves kind of like a prisoner of our barricade. And I just thought it was really clever and very insightful. I'd probably make a whole video about that, or maybe some books when I either read them again or read them for the first time to give you like a book review. I don't want to give too much because obviously I don't want to give it away, but I want to give enough to maybe make you interested and make you want to read it, because I'm really sharing the books that I really like. There's like the very famous authors from Latin America, and everyone says you have to read those books. But these are the lesser known ones that I feel are really special and people should know about them because they're amazing. Another book, this is really short, this is a quick read. I believe you can find this in English and Spanish, and I don't think it's too hard to find. I think you can even find it online. La vida es sueño, Life's a Dream, or Life is Dream. It's like a philosophical play by Pedro Calderón de la Barca, and he's one of the most famous writers from Spain. He's not well known. He wrote in around the 1600s. But he is amazing. He wrote so many different plays and stories. This book, I actually feel like The Man in the Iron Mask is based on this story. I mean, I'm not sure, but like sometimes we'll read a story in Spanish or a poem. Even the incredible story of Benjamin Button. My teacher, I believe my professor, said that it actually was based on El Viaje a la Semilla, The Trip to the Seed. It's very similar, like going back in time. I think they should give credit where it's due based on where they get the information or the ideas for the movies, but I guess that's just the way it is. But anyway, getting back to La Vida es Sueño, and how I said it was based on, maybe the Man in the Iron Mask borrowed some ideas from this, or maybe it's just a story that is like popular in literature. I mean, you can put comments below if you have more information. Some of these things are just my my thoughts. I didn't go research to see the exact origin. this book is about the way you live your life, the decisions you make. Life's a dream. What is real? What is fake? How do you interpret this? The impression it left with me, you don't know what's real and what's fake and what is going to be your enduring life. And I don't want to put so much of my impressions of the book on it because I want you to read it and explore and share your thoughts. But I almost can't talk about it. It's so, I don't know if the word is sophisticated. It's so delicate. It's so well written. When I read the book, it made me think, you never know. I mean, if I'm going to put it simply, in a simple way, you never know how long a certain situation will last. You don't ever know how real your situation is, whether it's good or bad. But you can be the constant. Like, I mean, you can interpret every situation in such a way that, you are the master of your ship. I don't want to talk about it too much. Maybe later I'll go more in depth. But I definitely recommend reading it. And then maybe at some point we can do like a book club or something like that. I'm not sure how that would play out right now, but I really enjoyed it. And then there's Don Quixote, which obviously is so famous. One of my favorite, because there's a lot of books within the book, because it's huge. It's El Curioso Impertinente, yeah. I guess the impertinent, curious guy. Basically, it's this guy who, in Don Quixote, is a lot about psychology and thoughts and how your thoughts affect your reality, which this is such an old book, and these are ideas that are kind of considered new now, and he was already talking about them. Like, such a genius. Anyway, that particular story talks about this guy. He thinks his wife is going to cheat on him, and then basically he sets her up so much to the point where like it actually happens, and it's just basically how your thoughts will affect your reality because they'll affect your actions and what you do, and you'll anticipate things so much that you'll create them. It's the best book ever. I mean, I have to read it again. It's so good. It's so good. Even I remember reading it and thinking that it was way beyond its time. I know, like, recently in college or in high school, we read some research about how guns kill people because guns facilitate the killing, because it creates enough distance. Because if I kill someone, like, I hate to be so morbid, like, if I have to stab them, or I know I hate to talk about this because it sounds really morbid, you have to see their face, you have to get close, you have to hurt them. But gun creates a lot of distance. And most people don't even think about that, right? But I remember reading a part of his book where he talks about something of that nature. I was like, how did he know about this, all this psychology so many years ago? And I try not to talk too much about guns and stuff like that because it's a really sensitive topic right now, but they do create the necessary distance to make really heinous actions possible. And because people say people kill people, but guns very much so facilitate that process. And there's just so much psychology and intelligence in that book, and so well written, and just the masterpiece. I mean, quixotic has become a word in the English language. I mean, his name has become an adjective in another language. It's like super powerful. These are just like quick blurbs, and I hope they're still valuable and you're still learning something from these quick book suggestions. And then this is an author, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, Sister Joan Agnes of the Cross. She was actually living in Mexico. She was considered very, very intelligent. She was a writer. She was also a nun, and she refused to get married or have any occupation that would take her away from her studies, which is kind of cool. Her books are really good. I definitely suggest reading more about her. I don't think that some of these names that I mentioned are famous enough and people know them enough. And I think reading these things, I remember when I was in grad school, I know this is going to sound crazy, and it's the first time I've said it probably like out loud or to a bunch of people. The books created thoughts in my head that were so wonderful. I felt like I could taste my thoughts. Like, it was so wonderful. I felt like the sensation that it created, I could taste it. Like, it was so palpable. So I hope when you read these books, they influence you, they make you happy, and they bless you. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.